So FP3 for you, what can you gain from that session? I guess some dry running, which was useful.
Yes, well, good afternoon or good morning to you. No, we had a bit of dry running. As you can see at the end of the session, it got rather wet, but some good race work. So we were obviously looking at our race setup for most of that session, as you can probably see by the times that we were setting, but some good performance data there that we've got in setting up for the race. At the end, we put Lewis out to do a little bit of qualifying, in fact, on the harder prime tyre. And that was a really good run, obviously virtually the quickest on the harder, slower tyre, so that was very encouraging indeed. Then both drivers went on to the option tyre at the end, and unfortunately just a few minutes too late, because it had started to rain very lightly. The circuit was slippery, so we didn't learn much from those last runs on the option, the softer tyre. But overall, we've gathered some good dry running, some good setup work for the race tomorrow, and a little bit of work or a little bit of data for qualifying this afternoon. So reasonably productive, and now we've got to watch the weather radar, try and judge whether we're going to have a dry session or a wet session. We can see more showers. This shower is just coming to an end, so it could really be raining, it could be wet, or it could be dry by the time we get to qualifying in a couple of hours' time.
Yes, we'll mention the weather in a moment, Martin. A number of teams have brought upgrades, of course, to Hockenheim. We've had a look at Ferrari's front wing. Lotus seem to be perhaps having a look at a double DRS, very much like Mercedes. And yourselves, McLaren, have brought a big number of upgrades to your MP4 27. Just tell us about those. Are they working? I mean, I guess it must be frustrating because of the wet conditions so far this weekend.
Yes, exactly that. We haven't had the greatest data set. You really need to be running in the dry to have that. We've obviously just come off of some dry running, so I'm sure our engineers looking at the moment. The indications are that it's good and that it's made a performance improvement. Inevitably, none of your competitors stand still, so you've got to take bigger strides than them if you're going to get ahead, catch up, or be competitive. So I think at the moment it looks fairly reasonable, but not quite the amount of dry running that we'd like to have had to be able to analyse it.
In terms of Lewis Hamilton, second fastest in this third and final practice ahead of tomorrow's race. I guess, you know, celebrations of him, 100 Grand Prix, all with McLaren, of course, since he started in 2007. But surely he'd love to celebrate this by signing a new contract with McLaren, wouldn't he? Are you confident you can get that done in the summer break, Martin?
Yeah, I'm confident. Again, here we've got this race, and we've back-to-back. We have a race in Budapest next week. So busy time, critical part of the season, and we're going to concentrate on trying to win those races. But you know, I've spoken to Lewis a few times in his management. I'm sure we're going to get something signed before we come back into the season after the summer break.
In a way, with Mark Webber re-signing at Red Bull, that stopped the sort of musical chairs that we might have been expecting in Formula One. There was rife transfer talk, I suppose, in the sport. But do you think that was an advantage in a way, because that cut down one of Lewis's options, although, of course, he's wanted by many, many teams? I'm
sure Lewis is wanted by any team. He's a great racing driver, but I think he's comfortable in this team, and you know, people like to talk about the musical chairs, and it's all exciting speculation, I guess. But as a race team, we just focus on getting on with our job, and you know, I think the important thing is that Lewis and McLaren, we've been together a long time. We know each other very well. You know, I've personally known Lewis since I think he was 11, so. You know, I think he's very comfortable here. He wants to stay here, so he tells me, and I'm sure we can find a way to get that sorted as quickly as we can. But as I say, for the next probably 8 days, we're going to really concentrate on trying to win some races.
Martin, you're there in the dry of the McLaren brand centre at Hockenheim, but I wonder, for a wet qualifying, a 60% chance, as I was saying before, Jenson Button has said that trying to get the wet tyres working is one of the big issues at the moment. Presumably you'd prefer it if the track dried out ASAP.
Very much so. I mean, I'm looking at some blue skies now, so it's going to dry out a little bit, but there are some shower bands coming behind, so I can't predict, I'm afraid, but yeah, we'd like it to be dry, but if it's wet, it's wet, and we've got to cope with that. You know, I think we've hopefully learnt a little bit from Silverstone. We had a poor qualifying session in the wet there, so we'll be doing things a little bit differently in terms of tyre preparation. It's very critical under any of these circumstances with these Pirelli tyres. You've got to get them switched on, you've got to get them to the right pressure, the right temperature. Obviously, we've got some data, we know how not to do it, and we'll hopefully demonstrate this afternoon we know how to do it.